Joining us live now from Darwin is Resources Minister Matt Canavan. Matt, thank you for your time this morning. If we could start with the announcement that you're there to spruik the North Australia Infrastructure Fund. Now, this is something where we've seen a lot of smaller projects put forward, none of the big stuff that would help stimulate the economy. Is this something where the government could be spending bigger bucks?
Well, Annalise, we are getting moving with our plan to invest in Northern Australia. Obviously, it's a very important part of our country, about 40% of our nation, but it's only about 6% of our population. But even then, it produces about 12% of our economic output, so it punches above its weight. And we're backing Northern Australia. Today, we're announcing an investment into Northern Territory airports, which will fund upgrades in airports here in Darwin, where I'm near here today, in Tennant Creek and Alice Springs. That'll make the Northern Territory more connected, but it'll also, importantly for the Northern Territory economy, create 1,500 jobs. It's been a tough time for the Northern Territory the last few years, particularly as a very large oil and gas project has scaled down. So it's investments like this we need to get the economy going up in the north.
I know we've spoken before about the infrastructure fund and the fact that the uptake on this has been quite slow. We had the senator from Northern Territory say that it was only $50 million that have been taken out so far. Why isn't the big bucks coming out of this fund yet?
Yeah, well, I'll step through that in detail. It was slow at first, and I recognised that about a year and a half ago. We did a quick review, changed the mandate of the Northern Australian Infrastructure Facility. It's a new way of trying to invest in things because we're partnering with the private sector. So we had to make a few tweaks, and since we made those tweaks 18 months ago, the Northern Australian Infrastructure Facility has made investment decisions amounting to nearly $1.5 billion. They've been making them at almost one a month at the moment, so it's really picked up the pace in that last 18 months. The reason not much has been drawn down yet is the same reason when you go to build a home. The bank lends the money when the construction is meeting milestones, and that's starting to happen. We expect in the next 6 months to be the drawdowns from the NAIF to increase significantly as construction on these large projects pick up.
One thing that you'd like to see sped up as well is that feasibility study into the Collinsville power station. Have you got any update on that for us?
Yeah, well, look, that's going well. We did make a commitment to look at North and Central Queensland's energy needs at the last election. I get in there and bang the drum to Kieran for my area to try and pick things up and move things along. And I'm confident that study, as the Deputy Prime Minister said, will kick off very soon, and we'll move a step closer, hopefully, to having a baseload power station in North Queensland. We don't have one north of Rockhampton. There is no
message though.
Baseload power station.
Does the Prime Minister get it?
Well, I'm sure, I'm very confident he understands it and gets it. He wants to see that happen for North Queensland as well. We all want to see the jobs protected in the manufacturing industries, particularly in North Queensland. We're a great mining region of the country, in coal, in bauxite, in copper, but there's also a lot of manufacturing jobs in North Queensland. There's a zinc and copper refinery in Townsville. There's an aluminium refinery, aluminium smelter in Gladstone, and alumina refineries. If we want to protect those jobs, we must have power as well. It's not good enough just to have the copper and the bauxite. Well, we are getting it done. We are getting it done. So, yep, I get in there and try and push things along as best as possible. Sometimes, Kieran, it might be news to your viewers, but sometimes things can go a bit slower than you hope in Canberra, and I see my job to get in there from North Queensland and push it along because I'm there representing my constituents, and I have to go back and be accountable for them. So that's what we've done, and it's going to get cracking very soon.
Necessitates the odd blow up, maybe as well.
Well, as I've said on your venerable channel before, I'm not going to go into blow-by-blow accounts of discussions with my colleagues, except to say I forcefully and passionately defend the industry of this nation. I very much want to keep manufacturing jobs in this country. I mean, it's sort of down to parties like the Nationals Party now to stand up for workers. The Labor Party have long deserted the mining industry. They're not doing much to help secure cheap energy for our manufacturing industry. And so I'm anything that involves creating a job, getting people into work, keeping our manufacturing and mining industry strong, I'm forcefully advocating for.
Now, we had your colleague Bridget McKenzie on this morning. She was talking about the farm household allowance. We got the clarity this morning that this is something where the minister will be able to make the discretion to keep people on this allowance if they are still affected by drought. Why has it taken us almost 2 weeks to get this clarity on what's an incredibly important policy for the Nationals?
Well, look, I'm not going to go into the commentary or discussion of how we are or not going. It's up to you guys. You get paid the big bucks, I'm sure, to do it, so I'll leave it to you. But that's been clear in the legislation that was released a few weeks ago. In the legislation a few weeks ago, there is the provision for the Minister to continue to make payments to those affected by drought. That was also, of course, the legislation that provided for an additional $13,000 for a couple who leave farm household allowance to help them get back on their feet. So we provided a lot of assistance here during the drought. We recognise that the drought has become even more severe, and like we've done in the past, we'll continue to increase and tailor our support to meet the conditions of this tragic drought.
She also called on colleagues to stop backbiting and to get on with the job. Would you endorse that sentiment?
Yeah, well, no one wants to see that, of course. As I've said in the last couple of weeks, I completely welcome my colleagues having a crack at me and others to get things done, right? Like, you know, the Nationals Party is made up of people who don't need to be told what to do, but they try and tell others what they want for their constituents and their members, and I always welcome that. You know, that's a strength of the coalition, I think, in that we're not automatons, we're not a bunch of robots. Our members are proud individual representatives of their electorates and their constituencies, and they're certainly not gun-shy of speaking their mind in Canberra, and that's the way it should be. And I certainly think the contributions of some of my Nationals Party colleagues in the last few weeks has helped move this discussion along. You know, people like Barnaby and Lou and others have got out there and pushed for things that are going to deliver, I think, more assistance for the drought. And when that does happen, they deserve some of the credit for fighting for their constituents, and as I say, that's what people expect from their members of parliament.
Now, Lou also had a crack at the deputy leader. Do you think that he took the right approach on that front as well?
Well, as I've said, I think these discussions should focus on the policies and the substantive issues. It's unfortunate when they spill over to worrying who's who in the zoo within the party room. I don't care about that. What's important is that we have people stand up and advocate for the results and the outcomes for people on the ground. And so on issues like dairy, on issues like drought, there's some tough and difficult issues, and it's right and proper that the members of our party room bring those issues forward and do so in a way that's very forthright.
One last question. As Resources Minister, do you agree with Anthony Albanese where he says that Australia has huge potential to be a renewable energy superpower in the future through lithium, rare earths and so on? He also spoke about the need for the fact that 200 tonnes of coking coal is needed to build one wind turbine, so that current industries will also be important into the future. Are those both points that you agree with?
Well, I do welcome those comments. I've been saying since the election that we need to re-establish some common sense on resources policy. For decades we've had bipartisanship on the development of our country and the development of our natural resources. I often give credit to great Labor resources ministers like Martin Ferguson, Gary Gray. Even Paul Keating was a shadow resources minister for a very formative time in the 1970s. And so all of these people have helped contribute and grow our country, and that's the way it should be. We should work together on these things. So I do welcome Albo's comments. I hope that is not just talk, though, it's action. I think it's unfortunate that Albanese or Anthony hasn't been able to say, look, he supports Adani. He's out there saying it's up to the market to decide. Like, people in North and Central Queensland know that's a cop-out. You either support it or you don't. Just get off the bench and tell us what your views are. Don't try and treat us like mugs. I mean, it's great to see Joel Fitzgibbon out there, but we need to see it from their leader as well. That they support projects like Adani, they support opening up the Galilee Basin, because he's right about coking coal, but we're also going to need a lot of thermal coal as well. On the International Energy Agency predictions, which assume stagnating coal demand, so fairly conservative, we're going to need to have as much thermal coal mined in the first 40 years of this century as we ever have in history before. That's just the size of Asia and enormous needs to generate power for poorer people in the world. Our clean quality coal should play a role in helping those countries grow and develop.
Just one last one from me, Matt Canavan. You said before Barnaby Joyce, Lou O'Brien should get credit for helping kick along serious issues like the Dairy Code of Conduct. Should Pauline Hanson get credit?
Well, I welcome everybody making a contribution to the debate. You know, it's
Should Pauline Hanson
farmers
get
do
credit?
it. Well, I welcome everybody making a contribution. My own perspective is it's those in the government party room that make the difference. They're the ones on the football paddock. The likes of Pauline and Bob are cheering from the sidelines, and I welcome their support, but they're not in there actually delivering results.